Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with Fiendsmith Yummy. Finally got around to trying this build, and yes, I am finally playing a Yummy deck with Elf in it. After seeing some combo lines and guides in general, I actually do think that Elf is probably optimal for both this build and Mitsurugi. This first duel is going to be me showing you how to go from Fiendsmith into Yummy. It's just going to be a one-turn game, but it'll show you how to, bridge the sort of combos here. Now, here I opened Engraver plus Yummy cards, so I could have just gone into Caesar and then normal summoned a Yummy monster, but again, I wanted to show off how to go from Fiendsmith into Yummy, because you do the line a little bit differently. It's the same up to this point: Engraver for Track, Track for Lurie, Lurie Requiem, Requiem for Lacrima, Dump Engraver. Now we're going to summon back Engraver and link it with Lacrima in order to make Fiendsmith sequence. Again, this is pretty standard for what Fiendsmith lines tend to do. We're going to activate the sequence effect to fusion summon the Fiendsmith's Lacrima, but you'll notice that we put back Engraver and Lacrima for it. That's because we're going to use Fiendsmith's Lacrima's effect in order to revive the Fabled Lurie. Now we can use sequence, equip to Fiendsmith's Lacrima, and send for the Necroquip. Now we can link away the Necroquip because we made it in the extra monster zone to summon Gravity Controller. Remember, if you're going to link a monster into Gravity Controller, it has to be put in the EMZ, the extra monster zone, which is why I summoned Necroquip to exactly this zone. Always very important to remember. Now we can synchro the Gravity Controller with the Fabled Lurie in order to summon the Cupsy Yummy Way. Now here we can use Cupsy Yummy Way effects. I might already have Cookie and Cupsy in hand, but it's still definitely worth it to add Lollipo and Marshmallow and get rid of this Fulos here. Cupsy Yummy is going to add the Yummy Surprise, then we can summon the Marshmallow, and we're actually going to synchro all three of them directly into Herald of the Arclight. That's because in our extra deck, we don't actually play any of the level 3 Synchro monsters, so this is the only way we can really make Herald. I'll show you the full deck list as always towards the end of the video, but now we can activate the Yummy Surprise, revive Marshmallow, Marshmallow effect wheels the Surprise back into our hand, and then we can link away the Marshmallow for the Snatchy. Now, Snatchy effect will place the Mignon from our deck. We can go Mignon effect in order to revive the Marshmallow, and now we can synchro summon. Here my opponent's going to concede. However, if we had continued the turn 1 combo line, we would have synchro summoned for Lollipo Yummy Way, revived Cupsy and Marshmallow, then we could have Link summoned the Sprite Elf, and then Sprite Elf could have revived one of our Yummy Synchro monsters, and we could have linked into the other Yummy Snatchy. Elf would have target protected both the Yummy Snatchy and the Herald. Now, in most builds, I don't necessarily think that Elf is optimal. However, if you start with Yummy going into Fiendsmith, you have the option to have Elf target protect both Caesar and Herald. That I think is a little bit more valuable, plus just the way the combo lines play out. I think that Elf is much better suited for a build like this than something like pure Yummy. Alright, again, a shorter game, but I want to show at least some of comboing from Fiendsmith into Yummy, because it's not necessarily the most intuitive. But now that I've shown that, let's go into some more back and forth / going second game. Okay, we're going to be going second against Monarch for this game. Haven't come up against Monarch too much even since the new support came out. But like other Yummy decks, one of Fiendsmith's Yummy's big strength is that it has a lot of room for hand traps. And as you can see, we opened a lot with this hand. So our opponent's going to lead with Tessera, the Primal Squire, revealing the Monarch's master plan. I decided to activate Fulos here. I was not only hoping to bait out an Ash Blossom or something, but Tessera could actually be linked into Almirage and then add another Squire. I don't know if Monarch typically does that, but I saw that opportunity, so I figured we'd just go ahead and throw out the Fulos. I'm like, there's no reason not to, right? But there is actually a sort of minor reason not to, and that's exactly Triple Tactics talent. Here they are going to hand rep. Now, looking at my hand, I'm actually most afraid of my opponent taking the Engraver, because between all three of these hand traps, Ash Blossom, Imperm, and Purge, I'm pretty reasonably likely that I can stop my opponent's plays with 2 of them, but if they take Engraver, I might not top deck another starter. Thankfully, they took away the Imperm here, which I'm totally fine with. And I'm not really sure why my opponent took that, given the rest of what they're about to do here, but either way, I'm definitely very grateful. So I'm going to go Monarch's Master Plan. I'm not going to use Ash Blossom against it. I'll use it against the Pantheism Graveyard effect. just to make sure that we are making full use of the Ash Blossom, and we're stopping as many effects as possible. Because if we had just thought Monarch's master plan, they could have, like, I don't know, activated Pantheism from hand. Now they're gonna go Revolt, discard Fua, and we can activate Purge. This is why I really don't get why they chose Imperm, because Ash Blossom plus Purge already stopped their plays. But either way, I'm grateful we have the Engraver in hand, and as we can see, even if they put Engraver back, we did still top deck Marshmallow Yummy here, although there was no guarantee of that. That's why I said before, you know, I was particularly afraid of the Engraver getting put back, but I don't know, I led with Engraver to bait, but then I realized, like, oh yeah, they don't have any cards in hand. There's no point to trying to bait stuff out here. So we can just special Marshmallow before activating Tract, just getting the free special summon in, and then we still have our normal summon, although again, we're not gonna beat it or anything. Yeah, they're gonna concede pretty shortly into this line, realizing I can not only do full Fiendsmith stuff, but also full Yummy stuff independent. Alright, let's see another going second duel. This time it's gonna be a going second game against White Forest Azamina. When in the game itself, I thought it was just like an Azamina deck, because I didn't actually see any White Forest cards. But you'll see what I mean here in a second. This time we only open Ghost Bell. Definitely not as insane of an opening hand to go second with. They're gonna go Philia Diabell and actually chain the Azamina Debtors here. Now the Philia Diabell does not count as a simple spoils card, so they're gonna have to send the Diabell Star Vengeance from hand, and they're gonna end up adding the Diabells, the White Witch, before just ending their turn. So yeah, in the actual duel itself, I was like, okay, this must be like just Azamina without any of the White Forest stuff. But looking at their deck list after the fact, they are playing White Forest cards. I guess they just didn't really open any of them here, because all they had was these two spells, plus the Vengeance in hand. So all we have to deal with here is an Azamina Ilia Sylvia, which will be trivially easy with a hand like this. I'm gonna go activate Fiendsmith's Tract here. At this point, I'm hoping to just bait out the Ilia Sylvia ASAP, then I can use triple tack to hand rip and not have to worry about, you know, playing through hand traps. But it's not gonna pan out quite that easily. We're gonna go for the Fiendsmith's Requiem and then activate. They're actually gonna use an Ash Blossom from their hand. So they have two cards left in hand. One I know is the Diabells, but one could still be a hand trap. And so we're gonna go triple tack here to look at their hand, and they're gonna actually use the Ilia Sylvia effect. So at this point I was like, okay, that might actually be like a Nibiru or something. We have to be like slightly careful moving forward here. It's only one, you know, unknown card left in the hand, but again, if it's Nibiru and I play really carelessly into it, I could give my opponent potentially an opportunity to come back. Not the most likely, but it's still something you gotta be conscious of. So I'm just gonna go for Marshmallow and then start a Yummy combo line this way. We're gonna go for Cupsy Yummy Way, activate here in order to add Cupsy Yummy and Lollipo. And I am actually gonna give up my Ghost Bell here, because I'm gonna really try to end the duel on this turn. Plus, if they do have an Nibiru, I think it's way better to have another extender. And at this point, I have the Yummy Surprise, so I was like, I'm just gonna go for it, summon Last Body, and then go end of main. And thankfully, it didn't end up being Nib. If it was Nib here, I would have linked into the Link Spider, activated Yummy Surprise, revive Marshmallow, Marshmallow Wheel Surprise back to hand, Synchro Summon into Lollipo Yummy Way to revive two of the Yummy monsters. And from there, I would have had bodies on board, but I wouldn't have necessarily been able to OTK. But still, the Nibiru on my opponent's field wouldn't have been that big of a deal. They would have had Diabells, the White Witch, plus whatever they top decked. Not the most likely to find more plays, but it is still worth being concerned about here. So, yeah, that looked like a really simple, you know, follow-up to the OTK, which it played out to be that way. But again, if they'd had a Nib, things could have turned very different. So, always got to be thinking of that kind of thing. But anyway, let me show one last duel before we finish off here. And finally, we're going to have a going first game against Dracotail. Again, Dracotail is often kind of touted as having a really good matchup against Yummy. Let's see what this opening hand looks like. It's not going to be great. No starters. We have 4 hand traps plus triple tack. Not lucky. You know, with how many starters we have in our deck, I think we have like a 5% or less chance of not opening any at all going first, which is, you know, again, very unlucky. But going into my opponent's turn, at the very least, as they activate Rahu, I can go Fua Maxi. I'm going to have to hope that's going to be enough here. But the thing about Dracotail is that it actually plays very well into stuff like Fuelos and Maxi, so we'll just have to see what these 3 cards we draw look like. But I gotta be honest, you know, in my experience playing Yummy on rank ladder, all the way from like mid-plat up through master where I am now, most of the time I lose to Dracotail are like hands like this where we're not in great scenarios anyway. Like going first, not opening any starters, or going second, going second. Going first, not opening any starters like this game, or having games where I like go second, don't open any hand traps, which again, if you're in that spot against most meta decks, you're already not favored. I guess what most people probably mean is that playing into a Dracotail board with Yummy is not very easy. But again, I kind of think that's true in general, so I don't know. A lot of it too comes down to, just for me personally, the way that I know that I think and play the game. If I start letting myself think like, oh, Yummy has a really hard time against Dracotail, all that's gonna do is psych me out, right? Like, and there's no point to that. Like, so I don't know. To me, I don't really view Dracotail as any more challenging than any other deck in most scenarios, but I understand where people are coming from. Definitely want to use the Ghost Spell against the Horn here to try to stop them from bouncing my initial summon. Like most, decks that have inherent summons or summons that don't start a chain link, you just want to stop your opponent from getting that initial body on the board. Of course, you're thinking about something like Sprite, right? Yummy is the same concept. So my opponent's going to try to do that here with the Horn, but they're also going to negate the Yummy Snatchy. We're also under Maxi, definitely not ideal. Honestly, if it wasn't for the Maxi, I would feel a lot more confident. Like, true, my opponent still has the Flame to counter the triple attack here, but I mean, we've got Cupsy Yummy way into, Cupsy plus Marshmallow. Before the Maxi, our opponent only had 2 cards in hand, and we knew that none of them were going to be 5 mana. So, at this point, they had the Valor, and I'm like, I don't know. I could chain Cupsy Yummy way, but then they just get more draws, and I personally really feel like I lost to the Maxi here. More than my opponent being on Dracotail, because at this point they're probably just going to draw into 5 mana, and they again already have Flame for the triple attack slash minion, so that might have been a little bit of an early concede for me, but I think it would have been highly unlikely for us to win. But again, I see that more as like Max C being the issue than my opponent being on Dracotail here, plus how not great our opening hand was. Anyway, let me show you the deck list and then we will finish off. Alright, so here is the list for Fiendsmith Yummy. And yes, look, there it is. I'm playing Sprite Elf in a Yummy deck. Again, at this point, I mostly think that Elf is not optimal for pure Yummy. I definitely acknowledge that for this build and for Mitsurugi Yummy, Elf is probably optimal. I definitely do plan on trying out Mitsurugi Yummy with Elf and Baron in the near future as well. But, yeah, this is the list here. It's pretty much what you would expect. You're taking pure Yummy, and then you're pretty much mashing Fiendsmith into it. That does give you a lot of opportunity for not just more starters, but also like starters that open up different lines, right? Like if we weren't playing Fiendsmith, if it was just pure Yummy, we'd be on like the Sky Striker engine, as well as like pure Reese maps, right? But here, not only can the Fiendsmith stuff go into your Yummy engine, but also if you do open like Engraver plus a Yummy card, you have the opportunity to like make Caesar and then begin Yummy plays. Or just in general using your Fiendsmith stuff to bait out your opponent's hand traps. The big thing you gotta watch for, the really only point where these engines can clash, is if you're trying to use Marshmallow Yummy's effect. Because remember, to use Marshmallow Yummy, you have to either have no monsters or all light beasts. One of the big advantages, though, to using the Fiendsmith engine is actually how well it plays with Dominus Purge. Purge in pure Yummy is definitely worth it, but conflicts a lot more than in a deck like this, right? Because if you use Purge in pure Yummy, you can't use your Sky Striker engine. If you're on Shamisen Samsara Sorrowcat, you can't use that anymore. If you're on Borload, you can't really go into that anymore. So it can be a little bit tricky sometimes to use Purge in pure Yummy. In this variant, however, the only thing you're going to get locked out of is like your Caesar, and that's pretty much it, because of course all of your Fiendsmith stuff is going to be light. So you still have a number of options that you might not have playing this build while you're under Purge, as opposed to the pure build. But otherwise, I built it with pretty much the same principles as pure. For like the Yummy, engine, the only Yummy spells we're on are Minion or Surprise. I'm not bothering with Acro Clee. I really am not a huge fan of it. I don't think it's bad, but I just don't want to include another card that I don't want to see in my opening hand, right? And with the Fiendsmith engine, you know, all 5 of these cards can potentially act as starters, so I'm really not, you know, that disappointed if I open any of these Fiendsmith cards. For that reason, I actually don't think Fiendsmith Yummy is that much worse than Pure at all. I personally, I think still slightly prefer Pure, but this build definitely has its pros for sure. I will be testing it more in the future just to see how I really feel about it compared to Pure. But yeah, for the time being, I'm very satisfied with this build, and let me know what you think of it in the comments below. But thank you as always for watching. Super appreciate you watching, especially all the way till the end of the video. Always helps out smaller channels like mine and is a great way to show your support. But speaking of support, let's thank our YouTube members and Patreon subscribers specifically as we move on to our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.